Is there anyone else with comments or questions on the development? I don't see anyone else with.
I think we had Pat.
Yeah, Pat Ford here.
Pat Ford, yes.
Is it my turn to speak, sir?
Yes, you can go ahead.
Very good. Thank you very much for the forum here. I respectfully would request the Planning Commission to do anything, if possible, in their power to put an end to this project. The type of process that allowed this to be created is in defiance of the spirit of cooperation that existed during the discussions around the Paw Sox Stadium. The overwhelming opposition, if you will, by Rhode Island residents to using tax subsidized tax subsidized building of a stadium was silenced because of the way the General Assembly and Mr. Stephen Pryor did real public input during this. So we're left with these type of scraps, no disrespect intended. For my question, and by the way, let's be blunt, the Major League facility just 25 to 30 miles up the road, pre-COVID, had an attendance decline every year. We're talking about building additional retail space in a time of a pandemic, if you will, and also in a time when the internet is destroying, if you will, that business model. We're talking about adding expensive apartments to an area that desperately needs affordable housing. But let's get to the basic premise here. My understanding is this employs a TIF style financing where sales taxes from the municipality will be directed towards servicing, if you will, the debt service and the debt for the construction of this project. And only in government ideas could this be considered self-paying, as if any of your businesses could keep their sales tax to pay your overhead. So my question is, what is the definition and the size and the scope of that part of Pawtucket for whom sales taxes will be collected? And if in fact the project is not successful, as so many stadiums of its types have failed across the nation, what will be the backstop if in fact those sales tax collections are not sufficient to meet debt service? Who ends up paying?
So Jay, I'm not sure if those questions are in the purview of the Planning Commission.
Well, they haven't been answered yet, so we'd like them answered.
Well, again, Mr. Ford, the Planning Commission is not here to discuss debt service. It is for the design of the project.
Right. All right, then let me ask you a question about the design of the project. Since the Fortuitous and the city of Pawtucket and the mayor's office have routinely failed to discuss who's actually going to be getting their sales taxes collected to pay for this. The implication here is that somehow people walking to the stadium will take the time out between the rushed arrival of parking and the onset of a soccer game or any type of event and go and support local businesses. That's absolute nonsense. And, we see the economic development that took place over generations at McCoy, which is to say there's none. My question is, aren't buildings like yours, particularly your soccer stadium, much like, if you will, casinos and much like shopping malls, designed to be self-sufficient to encourage all the spending to take place within the facility? And won't that in fact take business away from parking beleaguered local businesses who are not part of your development?
So I'm trying to figure out how that ties into the Planning Commission's purview.
Sir, if you can't answer any of these questions, I'll withdraw my time. But it's clear that you are either unwilling or unable to answer fundamental questions about the project. So when will you answer those to the public?
I appreciate the uplifting support, Mr. Ford, but
well, you're not getting it.
We've routinely answered every question that's come our way. I've never met you before. This is the first time I'm ever hearing the question, but appreciate the questions.
If this is the first time you're being asked, then that's nonsense.
I've never met you before. Would love to talk to you.
How many times have you appeared publicly in Pawtucket or in any of the parts of Rhode Island to actually publicly discuss the situation? Can you point to dates that I might have missed?
Dozens of times, Mr. Ford. We've had public meetings for the last 2 years, so I'm glad that you're tuning in now.
So a proposal when you were available and why you simply won't answer the questions now. Then it should be easy for you. The answer is you can't. So you don't or not.
Well, that's not true. I can answer all of them. It's just not in the purview.
All right, then let's set a time and date. I'll call your office tomorrow morning. Let's set a time and date where you can come on the air on our media outlet and you'll be able to answer those questions. How about that? In the spirit of cooperation. I'll even do what I don't usually do. I'll submit the questions to you ahead of time so you can collect the data. How about that? Are you
Sure,
willing
sir.
to?
So if I may add, just for context, obviously the purview of the Planning Commission is the design proposal itself, as you are aware, Mr. Ford, and not necessarily the financing at this time. I'm not the expert on the financing structure, obviously, because that is not our responsibility. As I understand the process for the state TIF, the agreement between Fortuitous and the PRA and the state financing component will require a master developer agreement that goes before the Pawtucket City Council.
Right.
That will be at a future date, and that will be a public hearing that is specifically related to the financing.
And the hallmark of projects in Pawtucket, respectfully, is then we find this out at the last minute. We always find out at the last minute because of Grebian administration, and I understand your purview. So why don't we focus then on my question? My question is, from a design perspective, on what basis do you expect people walking through a community on their way to a game to stop and actually use any of those local businesses? On what studies, on what facts do you base that contention, or is it sheer speculation? That's a design question.
I'm not sure it is, but
Okay, well, you made a point of bringing it up in the meeting. You made that a point. As a result, you introduced that into the conversation. What developers like you are very good at doing is laying out subtleties, nuances, creating ideas without actually taking responsibility for them. You mentioned that specifically tonight as a design addition, if you will, something that was accrued to income and the potential for the project. Why don't you explain what you based it on, sir, if you in fact can? And are you willing to discuss this situation on the air at any time soon?
so Jay, I'm not sure how to respond or if it's relevant.
So
or
you're a sophisticated investor who builds multi-million-dollar projects routinely. To that, I give you all the credit in the world. To say that you're not sure how to respond to a remarkably straightforward question proves either, well, I won't say ignorance because you're obviously a very intelligent man, or an unwillingness to discuss it. You brought it up tonight. Why don't you address on what speculation or what facts you base the notion that additional parking out that will clog up neighborhoods will somehow be a positive for local businesses as they will stop by and use them? Upon what basis have you arrived at that?
So, Mr. Ford, having more people in a downtown environment as opposed to having nobody in a downtown environment, during those times when you have businesses open, that's going to be a positive thing, right? You have people in an area that are not there right now. Those people will spend money. So,
as someone who worked in the direct environs of Foxborough Stadium, again, a Major League Soccer facility whose attendance has gone down 4 years in a row pre-corona, all right, I can tell you that based on personal experience, that's nonsense. But if you have traffic studies, if you're just putting out there general speculation, they're going to be in the neighborhood, so they might stop by. I don't think that's a great addition to the process here. Right?
So, Mr. Ford, I'd love you to take the time to review the file. We've spent literally the last year working on traffic studies, parking studies, engineering plans, working with the public. If you could let me finish, Mr. Ford. I'm not going to talk if you're going to interrupt every word I say, but I appreciate it.
You're unwilling to answer simple questions.
Okay.
I just answered them, but you talked right over me, so you didn't hear it, sir. So I appreciate
you're
it.
citing studies that you won't. You know what? Provide me with the studies. I'll call your office tomorrow.
They're in the file, sir.
Very
and
good.
I'm sure you'll be happy to release them. Or will we have to go through a multi-week
They're public documents, sir.
Pawtucket City Hall. Okay.
They're public documents.
That doesn't mean much in the city of Pawtucket. Ask the city solicitor.
All right. Thank you, Mr. Ford.
Very good, sir. Listen,
Thank
the point's been made. Good luck.
Okay.
Nice to meet you. Thank you.
We'll be talking soon.
Any other questions or comments from the public?